of U.S. tech giant Palantir is courting controversy with a new book. CEO Alex Karp's Technological Republic calls for a unification of the digital sector and the military-industrial complex, and an apparent return to stances of the Cold War. RT senior correspondent Murat Gazdiev has more.
For many years, Palantir has been an extraordinary company. Everyone knew it was big and expensive, but few could actually explain what it does. Now, we know. It was always in the name, Palantir, the all-seeing crystal ball from the Lord of the Rings.
The power of Isengard is at your command, Sauron, Lord of the Earth. Build me a home worthy of Mordor.
It's striking how much of a resemblance that scene has with reality today. Except, of course, it's much more terrifying because Tolkien is fiction. Palantir isn't.
As you can see, it's not just one data feed, it's multiple. And instead of having 8 or 9 systems for those decision makers to look at every single day in order for them to make decisions, you then fuse it into a single visualization tool. The single visualization tool allows you to select, deselect different types of data, look at different approaches to data, but more importantly, action from the same system that you're trying to develop your workflows around. Once you have a detection that you want to actually move into a targeting workflow, for example, this is what we do. Left click, right click, left click, magically, it becomes a detection. Once we've got the different approaches and we select one, we then can move directly into how do we action that target. So we've gone from identifying the target to now coming up with a course of action to now actioning that target, all from one system. This is revolutionary. We were having this done in about 8 or 9 systems where humans were literally moving detections left and right in order to get to our desired end state, in this case, actually closing a kill chain.
Because everyone knows what the world really needs is a system to target and kill people quicker than we could do previously. Israel's war on Gaza was a technological demonstration of the future, where Palantir was used alongside other Israeli systems to streamline killing Palestinians. No longer does it take 2 or 3 days to identify targets, establish their complicity and guilt, and kill them and everyone around them. It now takes minutes, with a huge margin of error, as evidenced by the tens of thousands of butchered civilians. But hey, that's the price of progress. Dead Palestinians. And that's a price that Palantir is willing to pay. Like, no problem at all.
Your AI and your technology from Palantir kills Palestinians!
Mostly terrorists, that's true.
No, it's not everybody. If you say mostly, so it's okay to kill innocent others.
Look, if your argument was so strong, wouldn't you let me talk?
You may think that from a moral point of view, a human point of view, that's very low, raking in billions on technology that often can't differentiate between a 12-year-old girl and a 40-year-old terrorist. Palantir, however, doesn't just soar to new heights. It also sinks to new depths, as outlined in a book that is essentially a manifesto written by Palantir's CEO, Alexander Karp, and endorsed by the company.
Point 1. Silicon Valley owes a moral debt to the country that made its rise possible. The engineering elite of Silicon Valley has an affirmative obligation to participate in the defense of the nation.
It sort of sounds neutral, corporate talk, but this statement affirms that Palantir serves the United States. Everyone else who has just had a lesson in what the United States thinks of them, America's closest allies in the Gulf and Europe, thrown under the bus. Palantir wants to help only America in throwing enemies and allies and everyone in between under the bus.
Point 4. The limits of soft power, of soaring rhetoric alone, have been exposed. The ability of free and democratic societies to prevail requires something more than moral appeal. It requires hard power, and hard power in this century will be built on software.
Palantir has built software to direct armies. Instead of writing software to control a tank, it has written programs to control all US tanks at the same time. Full control. Where to put them, where to move them, where they shoot at. The same for all jets and ships, missiles and rockets. Palantir wants to be involved in every single kill on any battlefield the United States finds itself on.
Point 6. National service should be a universal duty. We should, as a society, seriously consider moving away from an all-volunteer force and only fight the next war if everyone shares in the risk and the cost.
Problem is, Peter Thiel or Alex Karp, they can't possibly write the software and be on the battlefield at the same time. Someone has to pull the trigger. When Peter Thiel and Alex Karp's program tells them to do it, pull the trigger, live with the consequences, and get fired back on. And Palantir proposes everyone else to share the risk and cost of, killing innocents and dying. I can't imagine many Americans would volunteer to go fight in Greenland or Iran while being controlled, essentially like bots, by Peter Thiel's software.
Point 15. The post-war neutering of Germany and Japan must be undone. The defanging of Germany was an overreaction for which Europe is now paying a heavy price. A similar and highly theatrical commitment to Japanese pacifism will, if maintained, also threaten to shift the balance of power in Asia.
Well, on the one hand, Germany and Japan have enjoyed tremendous prosperity after their so-called defanging. They weren't the victims here. You'd also think that taking weapons away from two genocidal regimes that killed tens of millions of people would be a good idea, but only if you're a human with any sort of human values. Imagine you're essentially a weapons manufacturer. Suddenly, taking weapons away from Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan isn't such a bright idea. Imagine how much money Palantir could potentially make if it sold these two countries its software. Untold billions. The shareholders would rejoice.
There is no substitute for a real battlefield. You can build things in the laboratory, you can test them, but you don't know whether they really work until you've seen it on the battlefield. And Ukraine, sadly, is where that is currently happening. I think the only historic analogy that I'm aware of is the development of radar during the Second World War, where every bombing raid back and forth across the channel led to some fundamental discovery in radar. You're seeing something similar occur today in artificial intelligence in Ukraine.
It's so sad. Palantir, unfortunately, has to have data from killing real people because laboratories just aren't the same. That, by the way, was Lewis Moseley, notably the grandson of Oswald Moseley, who just so happened to have founded the British Union of Fascists and who also invited Hitler to his wedding. Now, you can't hold that against Lewis. Perhaps he isn't proud of his family heritage. Not that anyone bothered to ask. Which is kind of horrendous, given that this is in Palantir's manifesto.
Point 21. Some cultures have produced vital advances. Others remain dysfunctional and regressive. All cultures are now equal. Criticisms and value judgments are forbidden. Yet this new dogma glosses over the fact that certain cultures, and indeed subcultures, have produced wonders. Others have proven middling or worse, regressive and harmful.
The difference between Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf and Peter Thiel's Palantir is race has been replaced by culture. The meaning is essentially the same. If we take the statement at face value, white cultures are superior to African cultures, or Latin American, or many Asian cultures, on the basis that some white states have a space program and high-tech industries. It is insane how much vile ugliness is in that statement. Palantir's essential manifesto. Insane. But the same can be said about the private lives of many of the rich, the elites.
Point 18. The ruthless exposure of the private lives of public figures drives far too much talent away from government service. The public arena and the shallow and petty assaults against those who dare to do something other than enrich themselves has become so unforgiving that the Republic is left with a significant roster of ineffectual, empty vessels whose ambition one would forgive if there were any genuine belief structure lurking within.
He has a point. Why is it that the poor can discuss which billionaire went to Epstein's Island? What business of the poor is it that some respectable 60-year-old billionaire is having sex with trafficked teenage girls? The poor have no right to talk about Peter Thiel's long-time relationship and friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, just like they have no right to ask Louis Mosley about his uber-Nazi grandfather. That is the world Palantir believes in. And also the Antichrist.
I should not need to remind you that in the sort of quasi-mythological New Testament account, the slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety.
The Antichrist probably presents as a great humanitarian, great philanthropist, as an effective altruist, all of those kinds of things.
We're told that there's nothing worse than Armageddon, but perhaps there is. Perhaps we should fear the Antichrist. Perhaps we should fear the one world totalitarian state.
Palantir is a dangerous tool, Saruman. Why? Why should we fear to use it? They are not all accounted for. The lost seeing stones. We do not know who else may be watching. The hour is later than you think.
Palantir is literally named after a tool of evil from Lord of the Rings. No black and white about it. Palantir's chairman is obsessed with the Antichrist, and he can't decide if he wants humanity to live or not.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
Yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in this.
Should the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so it's always, I don't know, transhumanism.
Palantir's manifesto is a corporation's erotic dream. Go read the entire thing. It'll do you good. It's horrendous. The truly terrifying part is that while you and I, we stand here and we shake our heads and discuss how awful this techno-fascist future would be, Palantir and Peter Thiel and their friends are turning it into reality. There's no cameras to film the process, but look around. Look at Gaza. That is the future Peter Thiel wants, and he is very good at getting things done.